It happened in the middle of a crowded charity gala under the bright afternoon sun, in front of hundreds of wealthy guests, reporters, and television cameras. A little girl who had lived her entire 9 years in complete silence suddenly froze, tears spilling down her cheeks as she stared at an ordinary-looking wooden challenge coin hanging from a weathered chain around the neck of a single father. Then, for the very first time in her life, she turned her head toward a faint vibration that no doctor had ever been able to awaken inside her world. The billionaire who had spent hundreds of millions searching for a miracle stood completely still, unable to breathe as the impossible unfolded before everyone watching. If you believe that kindness can change lives, forgiveness heals broken hearts, hope is never truly lost, and second chances are worth fighting for, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing stories that remind us all of the good still left in this world. Meredith Caldwell was one of the wealthiest women in America. She had built a technology empire from nothing after surviving years of poverty, betrayal, and relentless hardship. Every magazine admired her intelligence, every business leader respected her determination, and every competitor feared her persistence. Yet behind the luxurious offices, private helicopters, and billion-dollar investments was a mother carrying a heartbreak no amount of money could erase. Her daughter, Eloan, had been born profoundly deaf. The finest specialists from Boston to Zurich examined her. Experimental procedures were attempted. Revolutionary hearing devices were custom-built. Therapists devoted years to helping her communicate through sign language and facial expressions. Meredith celebrated every tiny achievement, but every birthday reminded her of the one dream that remained painfully out of reach. Eloan never complained. She smiled with remarkable warmth, noticed beauty others overlooked, and communicated through expressive hands and brilliant sketches. She loved drawing birds she had never heard sing and oceans she had never heard crash against the shore. She imagined sounds through colors. To her, laughter looked golden, kindness looked pale blue, and sadness was always painted gray. People admired her courage, but few understood the loneliness hidden behind her bright smile whenever families gathered and music filled the air while she watched everyone else experience something forever beyond her reach. Across the city lived a man named Rowan Pierce, whose life had traveled in the opposite direction. Years earlier he had served as a Navy SEAL, earning respect for his courage, calmness under impossible pressure, and unwavering loyalty to his teammates. His military career ended after an operation left him with lasting injuries that forced an early retirement. He never regretted serving his country, but returning home proved harder than any battlefield. His wife passed away from a sudden illness only 2 years later, leaving him alone to raise his young son, Callum. Rowan traded combat missions for construction work, repairing homes during long daylight hours while quietly carrying grief that few ever noticed. Although money was always tight, Rowan never allowed bitterness to define him. Every afternoon after work he and Callum visited local parks, museums with free admission, or community volunteer events. Rowan believed that helping strangers reminded people they were never truly alone. Callum inherited his father's compassion, often giving away his own lunch or toys without expecting anything in return. One sunny Saturday, Meredith hosted a charity exhibition supporting children with disabilities. Wealthy donors arrived wearing elegant suits and designer dresses. Expensive cars lined the entrance while photographers captured every generous pledge. Rowan attended only because his construction company had volunteered to help assemble several outdoor displays free of charge. After finishing the setup, he stayed with Callum to enjoy the community activities. Many guests barely noticed the workers who had prepared the event. Rowan blended into the background, wearing simple jeans, work boots, and the faded leather jacket he had owned since leaving military service. Around his neck hung an old wooden challenge coin carved by one of his fallen teammates during deployment. Most people assumed it was an inexpensive keepsake. Rowan treasured it beyond measure because it reminded him that courage often survived through memory rather than medals. While Meredith thanked donors from the stage, Eloan wandered through the exhibits with her sketchbook. She loved observing people. Her eyes eventually settled on Rowan helping a frightened child retrieve a balloon tangled in a tree. He climbed carefully, smiling the entire time despite his aching knee. When he climbed down, he handed the balloon back as though accomplishing something truly important. Eloan smiled and began sketching him. Moments later, Callum accidentally dropped a small wooden box while unpacking volunteer supplies. The carved challenge coin slipped onto the pavement. Rowan picked it up gently before placing it back around his neck. As sunlight struck the polished wood, Eloan suddenly stopped drawing. Something about the way Rowan lightly tapped the coin against his chest before fastening it caught her attention. Years earlier, while recovering from surgery, Rowan had developed a habit recommended by military therapists. The wooden coin produced low-frequency vibrations whenever tapped in a particular rhythm. Soldiers with hearing injuries sometimes used similar tactile signals to communicate silently. Rowan barely thought about it anymore. Eloan watched intensely, without understanding why. She stepped closer. Rowan noticed her curiosity and smiled warmly. He knelt to her height and gently held out the wooden coin so she could examine it. Meredith hurried over, assuming another guest simply wanted to greet her daughter politely. Then something extraordinary happened. As Rowan demonstrated the rhythmic tapping pattern against the wooden surface, Eloan's fingers, resting lightly on the coin, sensed the carefully spaced vibrations traveling through the wood. Her eyes widened instantly. She had spent years learning to recognize movement, pressure, and visual rhythm. But this vibration carried remarkable consistency unlike anything she had ever experienced. Rowan continued tapping, slow, gentle, steady. Eloan suddenly closed her eyes. For reasons no one present understood, her brain began connecting the vibration with tiny residual responses that advanced therapy had struggled unsuccessfully to stimulate for years. The specially designed implant she wore, considered medically disappointing because it produced only minimal neural activity, unexpectedly synchronized with the repetitive tactile pattern. She gasped. She turned toward Rowan, then toward her mother. Her lips trembled. Meredith dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her face as specialists rushed forward, believing something had gone wrong. Instead, Eloan smiled with overwhelming wonder. She wasn't hearing words, she wasn't hearing voices, but for the first time, she sensed structured rhythm entering the silent world where absolute emptiness had always existed. Doctors immediately examined her using portable diagnostic equipment available at the medical exhibit. One neurologist quietly explained that Rowan's tactile pattern had accidentally activated neural pathways therapy had never successfully stimulated. It wasn't a miracle in the supernatural sense. It was an astonishing neurological response that nobody had previously explored for Eloan's unique condition. Meredith looked at Rowan with gratitude so profound that words failed her. News spread rapidly across the event. Reporters rushed toward Rowan, eager to label him a hero. He declined every interview, insisting that trained physicians deserved the credit. He believed luck had simply placed him in the right moment. Meredith refused to let the story end there. She invited Rowan and Callum to visit her research foundation. Instead of offering charity, she proposed something meaningful. She wanted Rowan to work alongside therapists developing tactile rehabilitation programs inspired by military communication techniques. His practical experience, patience, and understanding of resilience could help children whose conditions resembled Eloan's. Rowan hesitated. He had spent years believing his military career belonged entirely in the past. The thought that forgotten training might help children rather than soldiers seemed almost impossible. He accepted. Months passed beneath bright daytime skies filled with therapy sessions, outdoor activities, and hopeful families. Rowan never pretended to possess medical expertise. Instead, he encouraged children through patience, consistency, and quiet determination. Some improved dramatically. Others made only tiny steps. Rowan celebrated every success equally because he understood that courage was measured by effort rather than speed. Callum became Eloan's closest friend. They invented games using rhythm, touch, sketches, and expressions instead of relying solely on spoken language. He never treated her differently. Together they built birdhouses, painted murals, planted gardens, and filled countless sketchbooks with dreams of brighter tomorrows. Meredith slowly changed as well. Years of building an empire had convinced her that every problem could be solved through money, influence, or technology. Rowan taught her something wealth could never purchase. Healing often began with patience, human connection, and the willingness to keep showing up even when progress seemed invisible. One afternoon during the Foundation's annual celebration, families gathered outdoors beneath clear blue skies. Children laughed, signed conversations, chased bubbles, and painted colorful banners across the lawn. Meredith stood before the audience holding the same wooden challenge coin Rowan had once carried alone for years. She explained that countless people saw only an old piece of carved wood. She now saw sacrifice, resilience, friendship, and hope. Instead of placing it in a museum display, Rowan gently returned it to his own neck. Its value had never come from the object itself, its value came from the life that carried it. Rowan approached with a painting she had secretly completed over several weeks. It showed two mountains separated by a deep valley. One mountain represented silence. The other represented hope. Between them stood a simple wooden bridge shaped exactly like Rowan's challenge coin. At the bottom she had carefully written, in beautifully practiced handwriting, "Some bridges are built with courage instead of stone." There was hardly a dry eye anywhere in the crowd. The billionaire who once believed she had to rescue everyone finally understood that sometimes ordinary people rescued each other. The former Navy SEAL who thought his greatest purpose had ended with military service discovered that the most meaningful mission of his life began after he came home. Two lonely children found a friendship that taught adults what unconditional acceptance truly looked like. Before we reach the end of this journey, tell us in the comments, what do you believe builds the strongest bridge between people? Kindness, forgiveness, hope, patience, or love? Your words may encourage someone reading them today who desperately needs a reason to keep believing. As the afternoon sun bathed the Foundation in warm golden light, Eloan stood beside Rowan and Meredith, holding both of their hands. Her world was still quieter than most, and her journey remained far from over, but it was no longer defined by what she lacked. It was defined by the people who refused to stop believing in possibilities. Meredith no longer measured success by the size of her fortune but by the number of families whose lives found renewed hope. Rowan discovered that true heroes are not remembered because they win battles but because they help others stand again after life knocks them down. Callum learned that even the smallest act of kindness can echo farther than anyone imagines. Together they proved that miracles are often not sudden explosions of magic but quiet moments where compassion, perseverance, and love meet at exactly the right time. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May our family and our community always choose kindness over judgment, hope over despair, and forgiveness over bitterness, because sometimes the smallest act of compassion becomes the beginning of someone else's impossible dream coming true.